In the 1960s, the United States was in a stare-down with the Soviet Union. On April 12, 1961, Russia put the first human in space, beating the Americans to it. America created an education push and sought to beat the Soviets to the moon. On July 20, 1969, the US finally beat the Russians as Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon.
In the past, millions of people have looked up to the sky to understand space. Science and technology have caught up with our hopes and dreams of space exploration, and the US has run a successful space program.
However, research shows that the radiation in space can prove harmful to astronauts, penetrating through shields and suits. Radiation causes a whole host of health issues, and furthermore, astronauts have reported injuries due to their time in space and physical labor in preparation for an expedition. These health concerns have led to the questioning of whether it is safe to send lives up into space with so many risk factors in play.
Furthermore, research concerning the universe and space can be done here on Earth. For example, one of the greatest discoveries of modern physics was done here on Earth in 2012 at CERN, rather than us having to go to space to figure stuff out. In 2012, studies at CERN and the Large Hadron Collider confirmed the presence of a previously undetected particle. This particle is the Higgs boson, and it confirmed the hypothesis of Peter Higgs in the 60s. So in short, without the Higgs, particles can't have mass. As you can see, technologies on Earth allow us to make leaps and bounds in understanding the universe without having to go into space. To sum things up, America should cease to continue space exploration.
Due to galactic cosmic rays, astronauts are exposed to proton radiation in space, which causes DNA single and double bonds to break. Exposure to radiation leads to death, telomere dysfunction, and mutation frequency in cells. For example, a trip to Mars could leave astronauts with full-body radiation poisoning, which can have disastrous health effects. The general health-related problem in space is the high-energy radiation that penetrates astronauts in both short-term and long-term trips. Short-term consequences consist of cell reduction in bone marrow and skin, whilst long-term consequences consist of a higher likelihood of cancer and modification in cells. The following excerpt is from a NASA video explaining that effective shielding against radiation in space consists of at least 10 to 15 centimeters of shielding materials, such as water.
Radiation exposure on the Moon is very different from that in low Earth orbit. When astronauts travel to the Moon, they will leave behind the relative safety of the Earth's magnetosphere. Astronauts on the lunar surface face even greater risks from the effects of galactic cosmic rays and solar particle events.
On the Moon, you have no protection of the magnetic field, and you also have a very short warning, maybe just a few hours warning, so that the solar particle events become the major concern for the astronauts.
Scientists and engineers can partially shield astronauts from low to medium levels of radiation while they are inside vehicles and habitats on the lunar surface. 50 years of NASA research has shown that effective shielding from radiation consists of at least 10 to 15 centimeters of materials like water or polyethylene. But nothing can stop high-energy radiation like galactic cosmic rays.
Besides the dangers of galactic cosmic rays in space, there are other adverse health effects to space exploration. For instance, astronauts have suffered upper extremity injuries due to extreme temperatures in space. Also, moving around objects around in a zero-gravity environment requires the use of upper extremities, and astronauts heavily rely on their arms to move around. Continued time in space can lead to muscle atrophy and bone loss. Astronauts have reported paralysis in their legs from being exposed in space for long periods of time. Shoulder injuries include impingement, rotator cuff tears, tendinitis, bursitis, acromioclavicular joint symptoms, and superior lateral anterior and posterior tear injuries. According to the NASA video, How Space Exploration Affects Muscles, exposure to reduced gravity during space causes muscle fibers to shrink, leaving astronauts weaker and less coordinated.
Exposure to reduced gravity during space exploration causes muscle fibers to shrink, leaving astronauts weaker and less coordinated. Without proper exercise, muscle size and function could be reduced as much as 20 to 40% during long-duration missions. astronauts work out 2.5 hours per day, 6 days a week, to counter the effects of spaceflight. Reduced gravity can impact an astronaut's fine motor skills, resulting in a reduction in hand-eye coordination and balance. If this happens in conjunction with muscle weakness, it could make it hard for them to complete their mission objectives.
Exercise routines and health supplements, such as calcium and vitamin D, have not been confirmed effective in repairing bone that was damaged during time in space. Some counter-arguments are that there are many methods to limit exposure rates to radiation in space, such as planning trips that decrease the amount of time in space, modifying spacesuits and ships with extra shielding, and genetic screenings to determine whether astronauts are susceptible to cancer prior to entering space. However, the fact remains that space exploration is never risk-free, although medication and antioxidant consumption can definitely lower the risk. Lastly, technology has allowed the harmful effects of radiation to be combated by non-living means of exploration. Technology has brought us space rovers that have gone to Mars. However, unmanned exploration requires more resources to fund.
Big Bang nucleosynthesis is a theory that attempts to explain how the universe began. It states that the universe started with a Big Bang, and in that Big Bang, all of the lighter elements of the periodic table were created. Later reactions occurring in stars then created the rest of the elements in the periodic table. Big Bang nucleosynthesis relies on something called the Standard Model of particle physics. The Standard Model is a grouping of the fundamental elements in the universe that are responsible for 3 of the 4 forces in the universe. Gravity is not accounted for. In recent years, CERN began the ATLAS experiment in an attempt to find the Higgs particle. The ATLAS machine itself is a complex tracking machine. It tracks all of the particles that react and collide when 2 beams of protons are collided at speeds close to that of the speed of light. The equipment is tested for accuracy often, especially after large discoveries such as that of the Higgs. In 2012 at CERN, the particle was detected in experiments. Further testing revealed that in fact followed the characteristics of the Higgs. This discovery proved that the Standard Model is correct, or at least a correct piece of something bigger.
Although astronauts travel into space willingly, is it ethically right to do so, knowing the dangers that lie outside Earth's atmosphere? Space exploration never comes without risk. Even after safely returning to Earth, astronauts may have underlying illnesses and future cancerous complications. The question of sending men and women into space, knowing the dangers and uncertainty of their return, cannot be answered or measured scientifically.
Furthermore, the money funneled into NASA and the space program could be put to use to solve problems in the present. For example, such funds could be put down to help settle debt in America, pay for student loans, or sent into medical research for the cure for cancer. Also, there are many areas of the world that are impoverished and without clean water. Money currently reserved for NASA could prove extremely helpful to such areas. The cause and effect of reallocating money to different causes cannot be measured.
Lastly, a large percentage of Earth's oceans remain unexplored. Maybe America should look towards our own home planet before blasting off to discover others, although the benefits cannot be defined specifically. In conclusion, we know that space explorers can be negatively impacted by galactic cosmic rays. These negative health effects include cancer, modification in cells, mutations, and even death if exposed for long amounts of time.
Research can be done on Earth using the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, along with other laboratories, and using the Standard Model as a template. The discovery of the Higgs and the completion of the Standard Model are attempts to explain the universe and therefore space, but all physical explanations and concepts can be done here on Earth. So, is it worth it to go to space, given all the negatives, just to look around?